of October up to now. Today is the last day. And we like to share with a wider audience of students a seminar we organized to present our cross-country report of Wastewater International. I'll tell you later what is this tool that investigates in our food behavior. From food waste to healthy diets, the path toward sustainable development is the title of our side event, which is organized. We are live streaming from the University of Bologna, namely the class of agricultural policy, actually in particular international and comparative agricultural policy. I'm Professor Andrea Segre, and I share this class with my colleague Professor Luca Falasconi. This work we will present and discuss with you today is part of a path that we started with the independent dialogue organized in the framework of the Food System Summit, actually the pre-summit that was held in Rome last end of July, where with all the students that are enrolled in classes in the 25 departments of agriculture related in the universities of Italian universities, we prepare a document that was actually used by our government to set a position that link food loss and waste with healthy diets, in particular the Mediterranean diet. Well, this is just a short introduction because I'll share this presentation and this side event with my colleagues Luca Falasconi and Professor Matteo Rituari, which is somewhere in the department, not here, because we need to be a little bit separate, as you know. And Giulia Magliano, who is a research assistant in our department, and well, we will have cooperation. We have as a partner Ipsos, and we will have from somewhere in Italy, I don't know exactly where, Barbara Tocci. Both will share the presentation of our report. Also, since we are in a class here, some of the methodology we use to investigate 8 countries. Then we will have some interventions by students led in a sort of round table by Professor Matteo Rituari, but the floor is open to everyone with respect to the possibility. We have a class here in presence. I think you should see from a webcam we just have here in our desk, and a part of the class is outside and is linked via web. So I'll stop here. We will use this time frame of our lecture. So we're supposed to finish around 4 o'clock this afternoon. We will not break as usual, our usual 50 minutes. We will go straight and we will end our lecture 15 minutes earlier. So please, I'll give the floor to Giulia. Thank you. You can start with your presentation.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you for this opportunity and sharing a space also with the World Food Forum. We will start now by presenting the results of the last survey conducted by Wastewater International Observatory on Food and Sustainability, which led to the first cross-country report for 2001. This project has been possible thanks to many supporters that helped us in our project. And first of all, I would like to introduce you to what the Wastewater International Observatory on Food and Sustainability is. So the observatory was founded in 2013 by an idea of Professor Segre, and it's aimed to provide the community with knowledge and information about food waste habits and food consumption habits of households. At the beginning, the observatory was just focused on a national level, so it was mostly exploring the uses and habits of Italian households by investigating which are the main reasons that lead to food waste, in order to also understand and sensibilize and increase the awareness regarding the economic, social, and environmental impact of food waste. The final objective of the observatory is to generate common knowledge about food waste in order to use the information that arrive from the surveys to guide private and public policies that aim to prevent food waste and to reduce the phenomenon. In terms of methodology, the Wastewater Observatory is based on a very scientific method that it is aimed at exploring opinions, self-perceptions, and declarations of the respondents. And for the first time, as I anticipated before, the Wastewater Observatory decided to give an international scope to the survey in order to provide different data from different countries that are namely 8, and we will see later on which are the countries, to provide a common answer to something that is definitely a problem that has a global scale. Now Barbara will give a first overview of what the methodology is and the methodology that they used as Ipsos, and which are the first results of the survey.
Good afternoon to everybody. Just to, let's say, while waiting for Barbara to join the meeting, let's say a few remarks on my side. As both Giulia and Andrea were highlighting, something important within this exercise is the fact that we don't want to make a sort of classification or ranking among the different countries. It is not a competition for who is wasting less and who is wasting more. The idea of making this survey and let's say, as Giulia was anticipating, to try to understand a bit better the reasons behind food waste and let's say the behaviors of consumers in terms of food consumption and food patterns in general. It is more related to identifying potential interventions and in order to contribute to food waste reduction in general. So what is interesting in this story is not the rank itself or the quantification itself, but it is the consistency of certain trends among the different countries. Something that we can learn from these, let's say, data and from the stories that are coming out from the questionnaires are related to the identification of potential common patterns between North America, so US and Canada, and Europe, where the differences also in terms of quantity, but also in terms of frequency of food waste are quite significant. And while, let's say, Russia and China are a bit in the middle in terms of performances between North America and Europe. And let's say, looking at this data and looking at these, let's say, groups, what we want to do is to potentially identify, as I was mentioning, common patterns, but also to identify potential hotspots. So critical points where we want to concentrate potential interventions in order to, let's say, improve the performances in terms of food waste reduction. So this is one of the higher value of performing international comparative analysis between different countries.
Thank you, Matteo. While you were speaking, I think that Barbara is on now. So
yes, sorry, I have a technical issue in connecting.
Okay, Barbara, I was just saying, I don't know if you missed the first part of the presentation, but as we agreed, I just presented the first slides regarding what wastewater observatory is. So if you want to start explaining the methodology that you used and then the first results, the floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you. So first of all, good afternoon to everyone. I'm Barbara Tocci from Ipsos, Italy. Just some words about the methodology of this project. We surveyed the questionnaire in August, September of this year. We kept methodology on Ipsos panel. We conducted 1,000 cases per country, so 8,000 cases overall. And the questionnaire, the survey aimed to evaluate the 3 main points. So which are the food purchasing behaviors and consumption, which is the diets followed by consumers, and how these aspects are also linked to product waste and the strategies adopted by families and households for reducing food waste. The countries involved in the studies were Italy, Spain, Germany, UK, US, Canada, China, and Russia. So the G8 countries. If I would go ahead with the presentation, thank you, Julia. Starting with a couple of background information. The first one is the Consumer Confidence Index. That is an index that is measured on monthly basis by Ipsos in 27 countries. And this is the data of September 2021. It measures the confidence of consumers about the future, the economical situation of their country, their personal economical situation, and so on. And looking to the graph, we can note that China is the country where the consumer confidence index is the highest among the countries considered in the study. Above the global average, that is at 48.6 points, we have US, Germany, followed by UK, Canada, Italy, Spain, and Russia that are under the global average. Just a quick note about Italy, that actually is still under the global average, but it is one of the countries that seen this indicator increased most in the last year. In August 2020, Italy was around 37, 36 point. So it gained 10 points in 12 months, substantially. Next slide, please. Another from data.
I'm trying to move it on.
Okay. Otherwise, I can start to the head. One of the first questions that we asked in the survey was how is the approach of consumer to food? So they are looking for quality. They are mainly looking for saving money, or they have a pragmatic approach. That is to say, I buy what I need, but trying to pay the right price. If we look to the country involved in the study, we can see that the pragmatism is the main approach to food, even if we can see some difference among countries. For example, China, that is also, as you remember, the country with the highest consumer confidence index is also the highest quota of respondents that said that they look for quality, first of all, when they buy food. On the other side, United States, even if high consumer confidence consumer index, is the country with the highest quota of respondents saying that they are looking to saving money while they pay attention to money while approaching to food and to buying food. Another data that we can highlight is Russia. That is the most pragmatic country compared to the other one. These information are also useful for looking to the food waste data. Next slide, please, Julia. Sorry. Starting from how much consumers in each country is actually wasting food. We tried to calculate the average individual waste of food in grams in a typical week. And we can see that there is a sort of correlation linkage between the confidence index and the food waste. That is to say that US, Canada, and China, that are the most confident countries, are also the ones that are currently wasting more food. While Italy, Spain, and Russia, that are the countries with less confidence for the future, are also the countries that seems to pay more attention to waste of food and to save food. We also try to understand if there is something similar in countries regarding the food that are most frequently wasted, so throw away in the trash bin. And we noted that there are 6 product categories that are the most often, most frequently thrown away in all countries. And that's mainly the fresh food, so vegetable, fruit, salad, packed or fresh bread, depending on diet style of the country, and milk and yogurt, with some difference in each country due to their diet and cultural aspects, such as vegetables. On the top of the ranking, we can find China, Canada, and UK, or also salads, and also for salads, UK is on the top of the ranking for wasting. Regarding bread, we can see that there is a difference from fresh bread and packet bread, depending on the diet of the country. So in Germany, and Italy particularly, and Spain, fresh bread wasting is higher than Russia and UK, where it is most wasted sliced and packet bread. And we also noted, we can also note some aspect due to the specificity of the diet. For example, so if we look to the trash bin of people, we can have information about their diet. For example, in Italy, we throw away more pasta than other countries, cooked pasta. While in China, this happens with rice, or in Germany with cured meats, or in the United States with dairy products. After asking what people throw away, we also we try to understand why they do that, trying to discover the reason understating to the food wasting. Next slide, please. And we can note that we can group the reasons in two different branches. The reasons due to the consumer behavior and the reason that consumer assign to supermarkets, hypermarkets, and stores responsibility. In the first position, we find, in fact, we find that people say that they waste food because they forget of it. They buy, they come back home and they forget in the fridge or in other places, and the food deteriorate. But in the second position, we can find that consumers say that there is a responsibility also of stores, particularly for fresh food. They noted that often fresh food is wrongly stored by supermarket or hypermarket, and when consumers bring them to home, it deteriorates quickly. Other reason related to a not proper organization or proper calculation of household needs are mentioned, particularly that consumer recognize that they cook too much, they buy too much, or they miscalculate the needs of the households. And a particular case is also, we can see also in China, that where 72% of respondents said that they throw away food because they don't like leftovers. This is a specificity of Chinese people due to the fact that a cultural aspect, as eating leftovers in upper classes, in Chinese upper classes, meaning that you are belonging to the lower or marginal social class. So it is a cultural aspect in this case. I pass the word to Giulia, I think.
Thank you, Barbara. And now I'll give you some of the answer regarding the fighting against food waste and the strategies that have been identified by the respondents as the most successful in fighting food waste. So regarding some actions that could be promoted at a household level, and also the interpretation of food waste as a problem by the respondents, we asked to the countries which can be considered the most problematic aspects of food waste. Looking at the answers, we have similar trends and also different perception of food waste. First of all, what is clear is that most of the respondents in all the countries agree on the impact of food waste over their income. So they perceive food waste as a problem related to their also purchasing possibilities, as all the food that is thrown away cannot be eaten, obviously. But is also considered something that is immoral by many respondents and as a bad example for young people, which I think it's very significant to highlight this aspect, especially in the framework of the World Food Forum. we will see later on also that the perception of the immorality and of the bad example of food waste has also a link with the measures that are considered to be useful to promote an increase in the awareness regarding food waste. Other aspects also are related to the environmental impact of food waste, as in some cases there are countries, for example, the UK and the US, who also highlight the environmental impact in terms of pollution and also in terms of essential resources waste in some cases. Regarding the shopping strategies that are adopted by the households for reducing food waste, also in this case, we have different measures that are considered useful. First of all, there is the need to buy a smaller packaging of food in order to avoid throwing away surplus food that maybe small families will not eat, for example. But there's also the need to buy a long life product, although many, especially for example in Italy, stress the need to rely still on fresh products. Considering the consumption strategies, this chart, this table shows the level of agreement, let's say, that each country has regarding different habits that can help reducing food waste. In this case, we have almost total agreement on the need to check and to control the expiring date of the food that is consumed and on the food that is in the fridge. For example, we have here mostly all the countries that agree on this point with a good amount of agreement, but also the need to have under control what is in the kitchen. So to know what must be bought at the supermarket and what is actually already at home. So this could be considered as a strategy to avoid buying extra food. Other trends show that eating everything that is cooked is also considered very important, as well as checking frequently what is expired. Finally, we also asked to the respondents what are the most useful measures at a public level. So far we have seen all the measures that can be implemented at a household level, so in a house. While at this point we asked which are, according to the respondents, the measures that can be more useful to increase the awareness, prevent food waste, and reduce its negative impact. So as I anticipated before, many countries agree on the need of focusing on education in order to also increase the awareness since a very young age. But also there is a high level of agreement regarding the need to continue to promote educational activity through information, also at a citizen level. So in order to inform citizens about the impact of food waste, both on the economy, but also of the negative impact and the damages for the environment. Other aspects that are also considered very useful are also related to the food labels, so on the food information, also on consumption modes that can help reducing food waste. And finally, also smaller product packagings, as also within the private, at a private level, are considered very useful. Even at a public level, can help reducing food waste. In Italy, as we've said before, we are kind of we are paying good attention on food waste, even though we are not providing here a classification of what are the best countries and the worst countries. It is interesting from our perspective, as we conducted this study in Italy also in the last years, and because we are in Italy now, it was interesting also to provide a focus on Italy. So as we can see here, and this also is related to the other countries, fresh fruit, salads, and vegetables are among the products that are more wasted. Finally, this is basically the team that conducted the study of the Wastewater International Observatory for this year. And thank you for having us and for giving this opportunity of presenting our results. We will now leave the floor also to students from the University of Bologna, which have participated to the dialogue for the preparation of the summit. And I will leave the floor to Matteo Vittuari, a professor of the University of Bologna, to introduce the students and to mediate their interventions. Thank you.
Just 1 second. Thank you for this presentation, because I like to since we have Barbara Tocci here, I take a question which is, I think, very appropriate from our audience. By the way, we have people that are greeting us all over the world, but one of them, Martina Camisano, asked something that I think would be very important to answer. I read the question. I don't know whether Barbara is for you. I think you had the opportunity to read, but is regarding the sample size of 1,000 cases per country. Is this number well representing demographic variability in huge countries such as China, Russia, and the US? Please.
So, 1,000 cases is a magic number in market and social research. Obviously, so it's a standard sample. If we would like to have in-depth reading of different ethnies present, for example, in US or in social variability that we have in China, we will need to increase a lot the sample, but for a general perspective, we can also use a 1,000 cases sample. This decision about sample size depends on the level of reading that you want to have on data.
Okay. Meanwhile, also the students from Trento of the agri-food innovation manager, I greet them, and I think I'll pass the microphone to Matteo for the students' contribution, please.
Okay, so as Julia and Andrea were anticipating, we have some, let's say, planned contributions, and then the floor will be open to everybody for any comment or question. So I do invite Caterina, Filippo, and Irene to get the floor. So in order to share their feedbacks on the report and their questions, if they have any.
Yes, good afternoon,
Irene,
everyone.
If you want to get started,
yeah,
the floor is yours.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Irene Bedossi. I'm finishing my master course here in Bologna. I'm studying local and global development. And I'm writing my thesis with Professor Vittuari on sustainable impact evaluation system within the rural context. And I'm actually comparing two different methodologies known as the theory of change and life cycle thinking. So during the presentation by the Waste Watchers International Observatory, I think that it is clear how it is becoming, the consumer role is becoming crucial within the fight against food waste. And I think it becomes clearer every day how it is necessary to intervene on this particular chain link in order to produce actual changes and to reach goals such as the SDG number 12. And I think it's not just about the policies anymore, but it is also about the role of the consumer perception and the role of the consumer's behavior that needs to be linked to the policies all the way during the designing of the actions themselves. And in this context, I find interesting that we see issues that every country experiences regarding food waste. So on a macro level, we can find several issues that are shared, but then we also see that there's a peculiarity, there are specifics relatable to social and cultural habits from each country. And for this reason, I think that in this context, one of the main actions that could be a game changer or at least give some interesting inputs would be to invest resources and energies in implementing the pioneering methods of monitoring and evaluation. I'm particularly thinking about the theory of change, which is monitoring and evaluation approach, usually used within international cooperation and the production side of the food system. But I think it could, like the consumption side could borrow some very useful tools, since the theory of change is based on the idea that in order to implement a policy or design a project, we need to, first of all, find a very wide range of data, but on the other side, have a very thorough analysis of stakeholders involved in an issue. And the process of the theory of change sees backward mapping as the main tool of the implementation. So you first identify an impact that you want to reach. So I think that could be the change in the consumer behavior that we want to produce. And we go backward with outcomes, output actions, and all the way to baseline, a very stable baseline of assumption and facts that can be the data, for example, collected by the Waste Watchers with their survey. So I think designing actions in order to, for example, innovate food consumption regimes or spread awareness between all the consumers group could be could gain a lot of value by using something as the theory of change or an approach of this kind in order to maintain a very standardized approach for all the countries to share and act in the same way in order to tackle down food waste, but also giving value to all the specifics and the peculiarities that all the countries, of course, present in terms of social and cultural influences. So in this, this is my reflection, given all the information that were shown us by the Waste International Observatory. And I asked myself, and I want to ask everyone, if this could actually be an interesting approach, an innovative approach in order to produce more thoughtful policies. If the international institution could actually welcome and adopt such kind of approach. And in general, if this could actually bring a positive and a long-term impact within the food waste policies. So thank you very much for this opportunity, and I'll leave the floor to my colleagues.
Okay, thank you, Irene. So while bridging to Filippo, something that you highlighted, and it is fairly important, is this, let's say, the importance of differences in terms of cultural and social habits that are underpinning to some extent the behavior of consumers, and which is something that, let's say, this, the approach that is framing the surveys within Waste International wants to tackle and wants to highlight. To some extent, we can see Waste International both as an analytical but also learning tool, because we are learning from differences and we are learning from the identification of these, let's say, hotspots. And these hotspots probably means potential ways or potential items where we want to deepen the knowledge or to deepen the understanding, because we probably do not understand from a simple survey, and we want to find additional ways to try to detect why something is happening, why something is changing, or what are the motivation behind the behavior of a certain group of consumers in a given country. And an additional element beside the differences are also the commonalities potentially, because if we think about policies, looking at the strategies that Giulia was presenting before, there was clearly a consensus, although the countries have different social context, economical context. There is quite a consensus over, let's say, positive approaches in terms of policy. So nobody did want to have, let's say, fines or punishment mechanism in order to waste less, but everybody, all the countries were agreeing to some extent to identify ways and tools to stimulate citizens to have better behaviors, rather than finding, let's say, more, let's say, normative type of approaches. So, and what you were mentioning in terms of game changers and theory of change is, let's say, potentially a very interesting approach that could be combined with what the Waste International Observatory is currently doing. So thanks, Irene. Then shifting to Filippo.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Filippo Pini, and I write my thesis with Professor Vittuari too, about life cycle thinking, and in particular about the social impacts of city region food system. And so I think about the social impacts of food systems, and I think we can list too many inequalities and malfunctions through food systems. Just think about the fact that in the world coexist 670 million people that are in hungry and 650 million people that are obese. So that's show absolutely a malfunctioning food system, and we have to act and to act in this food system to give these persons, these people, the possibility to access to safe food, healthy food. Inequality and malfunctions increased dramatically through pandemic crisis, with increased food prices and consequently more people that cannot access to adequate food. The reduction of employment, almost half of 3.3 billion of workers, of agri-food workers, who make up the total workforce, risk losing their livelihoods. Social exclusion and poverty is raising up, and it's growing and becoming increasingly worrying for certain social categories. Just think about that. In 2060s, 24% of European people are at risk of social exclusion, and this percentage just raised in the last years, also for the pandemic crisis. So if we want to achieve the SDG 2, so zero hunger, we have to think about what these people could eat and could buy. We cannot ignore strong action to protect these social classes by guaranteeing them social rights, which should be inalienable, such as healthy and culturally appropriate diets. Today, many urban and peri-urban realities cannot access to healthy food, since they are the prerogative of social classes that have much more money to spend. So I ask me and you a question: is possible to think of a sustainable food system, therefore a productive system, excluding such a large part of population? Or perhaps should we change the point of view and think of evaluating the performance of food systems also in relation to their inclusiveness and their social efforts, and not only about how much we produce and how much we sell? I think personally that we need a more democratic decision-making process regarding policies, and this have to be essential for all the institution, by my opinion. And on the other hand, it is necessary not to leave behind this huge part of the population and act in the direction of ensuring a fair and inclusive food system for them. So giving them access to healthy products that respect environment and health too. Thinking that today we can feed all the people in the world, but we lose 1/3 of production, also because of aesthetic standards that are irreconcilable with fight to reduce these waste. So why we cannot act on these? I have an idea that is like to reduce taxes on these type of products that cannot allow to the markets, like, for example, VAT to 0% for these products that not meet aesthetic standards, and create hubs that can receive these products and then distribute to people who are in poverty or are at risk of poverty. I think that there is many challenges for food systems and for the access to healthy diets. And we have to act now, because in next years, these malfunctions and these inequalities just growing up, and we have to face it now. I don't know, that's my thoughts, my opinion about these inequalities and these social impacts.
Okay, thank you very much, Filippo, and thank you for having taken the attention on inequalities and inclusion that are two very important topics, not only for food waste, but more in general. And even the survey was focusing on the reason why food waste, the fight against food waste matter, why it is important to fight against food waste. And there was, even in this case, there was quite a consensus among the different countries, underlying that clearly food waste has an economic relevance because it is also wasting money to some extent. But a very interesting point was related to the fact that in all the countries there is a consensus over identifying food waste as a bad practice, also in terms of what we are communicating to younger generations. So one of the reasons why we should fight against food waste is also to, let's say, engage younger generation in the development and building of more sustainable and probably, quoting you, more inclusive food systems in order to not to leave anybody behind. So shifting to the last, let's say, planned intervention and moving to Catelina.
Okay, good afternoon, everybody. I'm Catelina Rettore. I'm a master's student in local and global development, and I'm writing my master thesis with Professor Vittuari, and I'm focusing more on the urban food policies. So with regards to food waste at the urban level, the most significant actions addressed to the consumers are information-based policies to raise awareness on food waste reduction. What in my opinion is currently only marginal is a concrete debate about how household food waste could be framed from a systemic point of view. In other words, consumers' food waste should be considered not only as a personal issue of choice and knowledge, but also as an issue linked with the underlying cultural and the economic environment. So prevention and mitigation measures based on behavior change at the individual level are definitely useful, but maybe in the long term, they cannot effectively change consumption practices at the social level. In my opinion, one of the possible keys could be restructuring the role of the individual in the local food systems. So consumers should have the opportunity to become truly part of the food system dynamics in order to reconnect with the food they choose to eat. So I think that it doesn't make sense to decouple actions addressing food waste from production, consumption, and retailing practices. In order to change the meaning related to food and food waste, I think it is essential to stimulate new social practices, which could in turn change individual food practices and values. An option could be testing and implementing new forms of local economy and supporting the ones already in place. In these new models of local economies, consumers are actively engaged in the planning of the food supply volumes. So for example, consumers could inform the retailers about what food and in which quantities they would need during the following weeks. And in this way, food waste could be reduced by both ends. At the retailing level, it would allow to diminish the amount of food unsold. And at the consumer level, individuals would strategically plan in advance their shopping list based on their needs. Of course, this could only partially work in the large-scale distribution system, as in this system, the relationship between supermarket chains and consumers is structured in a different way. For this reason, I think it is important to build new relationships of collaborations between retailers and consumers. And urban policies could, for example, facilitate the creation of community emporiums where the members have the double role of buyers and sellers, or stimulate the creation of a capillary network of farmer markets, community-supported agriculture, ethical purchasing groups, and other forms of short supply chains. These initiatives, far from being only related to the economic dimension, would take the role of localized systems that increase access and provide local connections where new social norms are created and shared. By opening up these new places of socialization across the city and by strengthening the bonds within the communities, these spaces could serve as food sharing opportunities as well, where people can go to donate and share the food they don't plan to eat before the expiring date. To sum up, I think that the problem of household food waste could be faced by considering it from a systemic point of view, and actions should be addressed to change the role of the consumer, who shouldn't be seen as the final ring of a chain, but as an actor that has a crucial role within the system and who should be more actively involved in its dynamics. So I would like to leave you with two questions. So if you think that, do you think that consumers have a marginal and passive role in the food system? And as consumers, do you think you would take the chance to engage in more direct relationships with food retailing networks? Thank you.
Thank you, Caterina. So for opening, let's say, additional food for thoughts, you had a continuity in discussing this, let's say, territorial dimension, since Filippo was introducing the concept of city-region food systems. So the linkages between, let's say, different areas, urban areas and rural areas, while you were focusing more on urban areas and cities that are clearly crucial also in the fight against food waste, also given the amount of people living in the cities today, which is well above the 50% of the total population. Additionally, you were underlining the role of social norms and that are quite important. And even if we look at the European platform for food waste and losses and the, say, the debate at the European level, the role of social norms is getting more and more important. So there is an increasing attention and an increasing willingness to investigate these factor related to food waste. And for sure, food sharing is also important and crucial, as partially it was also emphasized by what happened during the COVID-19 pandemic in terms of disruption of local food supply chains and so on. And thanks for opening, or so for closing, opening with some questions related to, say, the role of consumers, if they should be more active while at the moment they are still too passive, and what is the relationship with the between consumers and retailers in general. So I would take advantage of your questions to open up the floor to everybody, eventually starting from Trento, since we polarized a bit the attention in Bologna until now. So I would welcome questions and comments prioritizing Trento and then from anybody else. And I would like to ask Giulia to support if there is any question in the chat, since I cannot see that at the moment, and also the colleague Professor Falasconi to, let's say, contribute to the conversation and eventually to take my place.
There is one question. There is Ana Cristina Vides Gomez, who's asking if we are planning to conduct a similar study also in other countries, or yeah, this one.
Okay, so I would leave the floor to Andrea, since he has more the strategic view of what Wastewater International will do in the incoming years.
Yes, thank you, Matteo. Well, actually, the question of Anna Cristina is not only whether we'll conduct a similar study in other countries, but also if the aim is to collaborate with international students. The second question is, of course, yes, we use this tool, this observatory, as I told you earlier, since some 8-9 years. First, we focus on Italy. Then, for the first time this year, we prepare this cross-country study. We expect to produce a new cross-country study around the end of September next year. By the way, you know that with 29th will be next year the 3rd International Day on awareness on food loss and waste. And we will pick up other 7-8 countries. We call this cross-country report actually in a sort of journalistic jargon. We call a waste aid, you know, G8 and waste aid. But again, as Matteo pointed out, this is not a way to rank countries in order to see who is the best or the worst. So it's important, since we are here, I think you see with the PC of Luca, the webcam, our students part in presence here to work with young people and students in particular. We use really this tool in our classes since 8 years because we think that this part of our discipline on behavioral economics is important also, let's say, from a pedagogic point of view, because you need, apart of the sample, Barbara already answered, you need also to know how to formulate the questions. It's very important to have correct answers, and then elaborate answers and get out policy, public policies suggested. So this is really, in a sort of tweet, our aim. And for sure, if we will have support, private support, we will have a new cross-country report next year, somehow at the end of September. Well, perhaps I'll give you Matteo again the floor to moderate if we have some question from the floor. Use please the chat. By the way, we are on Zoom platform now, but our university used Teams, and so we tried to merge, and was really a daunting exercise. Apparently everything is working now, but Julia, I don't know whether you have in the chat some other questions.
There is someone who is raising a hand, so I will.
Okay, let her or in.
I'm trying to allow him speaking. I don't know if it's him or
who is
Morris Han.
Molesan.
Molesan, I'm not sure if it's the right pronunciation. I see that you have raised your also from Trento. They're asking if there are any laws that can help reduce food waste. I can answer on this. There are different measures that help to reduce food waste. In Italy, we have the Legge Gadda, which is a law, if I'm not wrong, is incentivizing the supermarket to avoid throwing away food and rather relying on charities or associations that redistribute the surplus of food from supermarket to people who need food. But is not a mandatory measure, rather is an incentivation that leads, if a supermarket implements this law, to fiscal advantages, basically. While, for example, there are other forms of regulation that are also very effective. I think from my perspective, more effective. For example, in France, there is a law that wants this agreement between charities and supermarkets to be mandatory. So every supermarket must agree with the charity that surplus food must be sent to charities, and this and if not, there are fees that the supermarkets must pay.
Yes, thank you, Giulia. I may add something because we launched a debate last 5th of February, which is the Italian Day on Food Waste Prevention, and we use this wording prevention not with a reason. I'll try to explain. Well, where we ask to our Italian panel of Waste Watchers International, whether we would agree to have this law mandatory, like the French example. You know why? Because this pandemic situation had a strong, very, very strong impact on food poverty. And a part of the job we started some 20 years ago was to recover food to benefit charities and basically poor people. While some 10 years ago, we asked ourselves, but out of 100 of food loss and waste in the Italian food system, in the Italian chain from the field to our table, to domestic and domestic consumption and outside our household, so restaurants. We discovered, our first study, that more or less 65% was concentrated in our household. And we knew out of our previous experience that was not possible to recover to benefit the charities. So for this reason, we launched this observatory, the first waste watcher back in 2013, if I well remember, in order to try to understand why we wasted food, knowing that the recovery to benefit the charities was not possible. Now, this Italian law number 166 passed just after Expo 2015. Actually, the law was passed in our parliament in 2016. With this, how to say, as Giulia correctly said earlier, this incentive approach. You benefit charities recovering food stuff otherwise wasted. We give you a discount, an advantage from the tax on garbage. I don't know exactly whether this is the correct term, because we need to pay to destroy the garbage. So at that moment, we favorized this approach because it was sort of, sort of incentive. Now we would need to have this recovery mandatory because there is a need. to recover food for poor people. But so I explained the reason why we try to understand our behavior in our household. So going in you know, a big part of the society, because all of us who has access to food, of course, not poor people, need to understand why we waste the reasons. So this is on the, you know, on the top of our observatory. Sorry, I kept too much time in my answer. But do we have any other comment or request to intervene? Moleshan, is possible to ask him or
I'm
her
trying to understand if he actually wants to intervene, but
apparently not.
I guess that he would have wrote something in the chat if yes.
Okay. Any other question? Matteo, Luca? Luca is satisfied?
Not really. No other question or remarks from my side.
Okay, so I mean, I didn't perhaps present it the correct way with respect to our observatory, because Luca Falasconi, who actually is out of our welcome, but is here with us on my right side, he is the responsible, the scientific coordinator of the Wastewatcher International Italy, because each Italian day we present a report focused on our country. And by the way, the last slide that Giulia showed you was on Italy. While Matteo Bituari is the scientific coordinator of the Wastewatcher cross-country report. In our team, we have Enzo Risso, who is the scientific director of Ipsos, and Barbara Tocci, she is the research executive, and I think she gave some answers on how we select the sample in each country. Well, I think very useful, this sort of lecture. I'm looking in my students in the Italian class, that is actually, I'll translate in Italian, Politica Agraria Internazionale Comparata. We ask them to participate, of course, in English, which is an important language we need to know. Other classes we have at the higher level are straight in English. This lecture side event of the World Food Forum will be is registered, so each of you can have the opportunity of also to spread to other colleagues, students, our thoughts today. By the way, you can find this presentation both in English and in Italian on our website. Perhaps Giulia, you write on the chat, because I'll tell in Italian, sprecozero.it. Spreco Zero is the Italian translation of zero waste, which actually is also the name of our campaign, Zero Waste. We launched some 10 years ago without knowing that we had this Sustainable Development Agenda of the UN having to point is the target number 12.3. The aim is to reduce by 1/2. Well, we were more optimistic, let's say, to reduce by 100% zero waste. We think it's possible. We need to have very ambitious target, and we will work to monitor through Wastewatcher International the results each year, cross-country report, Italian report, to see whether we will be able, we think, we hope, to at least to 1/2 within 2030, which would be, in any case, a very good result. So I think I'll leave you here. Students will be happy because we finish a little bit earlier with respect
we just have one
schedule. One other question, please.
We have one other question from students from Trento. We're asking how and to what extent circular economy can also help reducing food waste.
Matteo, this is for you, I think.
But circular economy can help to reduce food waste in many ways. And circular economy, it is about the valorization and the sustainable use of resources at any stage of the food supply chain. So the approach is fully consistent with most of the interventions that are, say, considered within the food waste domain, not only in terms of prevention and reduction, but also in terms of potential valorization. So if we cannot manage to reduce or prevent food waste, what we can do is to valorize some of the products that risk to be wasted in order to give them an alternative life that might not prioritize human consumption, but that might be leading to, say, alternative uses. So always prioritizing and avoiding to have these resources wasted and not used, and so to not to give monetary value to these resources. Also because we want to consider that wasting food, and we have probably not had this focus today, it is about all the different dimensions, not only the monetary one that was important within the discussion today, or the social one, but also the environmental one, which is very much related to circular economy. And food waste can provide a contribution in both reducing environmental externalities and also to decreasing inequalities and along the food supply chain.
Okay, thank you. It was actually a good conclusion with respect to how to consider, food waste in a positive perspective, sustainable development goals, circular economy, and then I think we will stop here. Thank you to all of the staff that contribute to this side event. Thank also to the World Food Forum, and in particular to Massimo Torero, who is the chief economist of the FAO, that suggests us to organize such event while we discuss with him the result of our report. And actually we presented with Massimo, with Maurizio Martina, who is the general director of the FAO, and also with the staff of our Minister of Foreign Affairs and of Agricultural Policies, with the Minister Patuanelli, the results of this report last year, the 28th of September, the day before the International Day, the second International Day of Awareness on Food Loss and Waste. So thank you to all of you from all over the world. I saw a number of people that still are connected from other countries, and hope to stay safe, and please don't waste, of course, when you go home this evening. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye to all.
Bye.
Bye, thank you very much.
Bye-bye.